Electoral allied with outlaw TPLF. And former ambassador urged Ethiopians to struggle for democracy during the next election. Very warm welcome to Addis News Hour. I'm Solomon Danya. Thanks for joining me. Ethiopia has called for the United Nations policy formulation and planning process on peacekeeping missions in Africa to be participatory. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign Affairs Demeka made the call at the African Union Peace and Security Council meeting on peacekeeping in Africa. The ministerial level meeting was held virtually yesterday under the theme Emerging Challenges and Critical Lessons for Sustainable Peacekeeping Operations, a process of the United Nations policy formulation and planning, as well as preparation of operational guidelines and training schemes for peacekeeping missions in Africa, must be participatory, he said at the event. According to the mega, participatory policy formulation would help the AU-PSC and the AU Commission to contribute from their informed perspectives about facts on the ground. Ethiopian ambassador to the Kingdom of Belgium, Luxembourg and AU institutions met with a permanent representative of Sweden to the European Union Political and Security Committee, Michael Lindvall, and discussed various issues. During the meeting, the two sides exchanged views on the current security, political and humanitarian situation in the Tigray region of Ethiopia, upcoming national election, and the need to step up humanitarian assistance with the unfettered access in place. They also agreed to further exchange information on various issues of common concern. Leaders of various political parties accused Egypt and Sudan of tirelessly conspiring to destabilize Ethiopia, aiming to interrupt the second water filling operation of the GERD. The politicians urged the general public to stand in solidarity against the ambitions of these two nations. Abtam Oshagri has more.
According to the politicians, Egypt and Sudan are working to destabilize Ethiopia and a bit to create havoc so that the nation will fail to succeed in its plan of second water filling of the multi-billion-dollar dam GERD. The leaders told the Ethiopian news agency that the downstream countries that are against the construction of GERD are also trying to thwart the second water filling of the GERD. Senior advisor of the Tigray Democratic Party, Gidey Zeratzion, called upon the general public to stand in unison against Egypt and Sudan.
ጠላቶቻችን ያው እንግዲህ እንደምታዩት በተለያየ መንገድ ነው እየመጡብን ያሉ
It is evident that our enemies are cornering us at this hour of difficulty. Egypt and Sudan consider now an opportune moment to create huge havoc in our country. They are planning to create instabilities and conflicts by targeting our flagship project. TPLF agents and strategists have been working hands in gloves with these nations. We have to take maximum care by understanding the recent attempt by foreign powers to intervene in the nation's domestic affair. Thus, I personally believe that we have to avoid any conflict by prioritizing our country.
Prosperity Party senior leader Yaret Teshome for his part said it is critical to solidify the nation's sovereignty by implementing the second water filling operation effectively.
ህዳሴ ግድብን የሚመለከትበት ሁኔታ ጉዳዩ የአሻራ ጉዳይ ነው። ጉዳዩ የሉዓላዊነት ጉዳይ ነው።
The GERD for us Ethiopians is an existential matter. What matters now is therefore to effectively conduct the second filling of this flagship project. For this to happen, let's narrow our differences and unite. Thus, the GERD is a symbol of sovereignty, fingerprint and dream of all Ethiopians.
ያለምንም ልዩነት ይሄ ቅድም
Egypt and Sudan, according to the politicians, are politicizing and sensationalizing the issue of GERD.
ኢትዮጵያ ልትሻገርባቸው ከምትችላቸው ከምርጫ ጋር ከህዳሴ ግድብ ከመሙላት ጋር
Egypt and Sudan are trying the issue of GERD with the upcoming election and water filling operation concerns. But by doing so, they are trying to violate Ethiopia's sovereignty. Egypt and Sudan both face stern opposition from their citizens. Egypt's LCC faced numerous turmoil, and same is true with the Sudanese leadership. They are both trying to divert the attention of the public.
በየሳምንቱ ይነሳባቸዋል ችግር ያንን ችግር ዳይቨርት ማያወነው ስለዚህ እንደዚህ ዘላቂ የሆነውን ችግራችንን በየቤታችን መፍታት እንጂ የቤታችንን ችግር ወደ ሌላ ለማሻገር መሞከር ከሳምንት ያለፈ እድሜ አይኖረውም እንደ ቀጠናም እንደ ሀጉርም ችግር ውስጥ የሚከተን ነው የሚሆነው ስለዚህ ተከባብሮ መኖሩ ነው የሚበጀው
Ethiopia is undertaking preparations to undertake the second water filling operation and the testing of the two turbines early electric generation activity in the coming rainy season.
Former Deputy Director General for Africa at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Israel called upon Ethiopians to struggle for democracy, particularly during the upcoming election slated for early June. In an exclusive interview with ETV, the Deputy Director General Avi Granot further said democracy plays a very important and crucial role in promoting good governance and national development. Kassan Jane presents the reminder of the story.
Granot said almost every nation, rightly or wrongly, freely or compulsively, wants to be seen as democratic, even so the political system bears no semblance of democracy.
Fight, as we do now, for example, as we do now, we have upcoming elections in Israel. We have a bitter fight. But it's a political fight in parliament. In parliament. Sometimes it is nasty, sometimes it is ugly, sometimes they use terrible language, but eventually the ballots will determine not the bullets. Now, the struggle for the different ethnic groups, the different provinces, 9 provinces, Meles Zenawi was right in understanding the need to form a federation.
Okay.
And I remember discussing with him years ago.
Okay. And
regrettably, he said then, some of the states did not accept the new rules of the game and refused, for example, to join the elections for parliament. And he said, I will never forget that. We went to the opening of parliament. All the ambassadors were invited, and we had an opportunity to talk to the late Prime Minister Meles Zenawi. And we asked him, we said, you know, Parliament is not a fair representative of the whole population. And he said, it's not my fault.
According to the ambassador, democracy plays a very important and crucial role in promoting good governance and national development.
Because we believe that the economic link, at the end of the day, between us and the African continent is the basis to our relationship. The events in Ethiopia, the developments in Ethiopia, and I have to tell you honestly, Fasil, this is a process which reminds me slightly of our own growing up in Israel. People throughout the world don't know that the beginning of formation of a democracy is a very painful one.
He also called upon Ethiopians to critically examine the challenges and prospects of democracy and national development, highlighting the uniquity of electoral malpractices in Ethiopia and the previous regions.
Of course. What I'm trying to say is that the building of democracy in Ethiopia is basically democratic only since 1995. But if I have a message to the Ethiopian people, struggle in democratic ways.
In a statement issued today, Office of the Prime Minister recalled that the dominant group within TPLF violated the constitution and other basic laws of the land in attacking the defense forces, which are the hope and pride of the country. In fulfilling this obligation, the federal government took legal action against the TPLF criminal clique, the statement said. Here is the full statement.
Today's statement from Office of Prime Minister reads, "It is an established fact that the dominant group within TPLF violated the constitution and other basic laws of the land in attacking the defense forces, which are the hope and pride of the country. Even prior to the attack, the perpetrators had engaged in various illegal activity that threatened the peace and unity of the nation. Breakdown of peace, death, displacement and communal instability have been the results of direct and indirect crimes committed by the TPLF clique. The unlawful TPLF group committed a treasonous act against Ethiopia, considering the federal government's patience and attempt to resolve matters peacefully as a weakness. In particular, the massive attack on our defense forces is a crime that threatens the very existence of the country. The situation was imminent, forcing the government to take appropriate legal action. When such things happen, it is clear that the government has both moral and legal obligation to take appropriate rule of law enforcement action to protect the sovereignty and security of the country. In fulfilling this obligation, the federal government took legal action against the TPLF criminal clique. The action taken has eroded the illegal military setup of the clique, which has been a major threat to our country and the region. Some of the key leaders of this group have been arrested and brought to justice, while the rest have been weakened and become fugitives. In accordance with the Constitution as well as the decision of the House of Federation, a provisional administration has been established in the region. The federal government is also working to rebuild the region and rehabilitate the victims of the conflict instigated by the clique. This reconstruction and rehabilitation work require the efforts and support of all. It is to be recalled that the government called on all Ethiopians as well as the international community to take part in rebuilding Tigray. Ethiopians who originated from the region are among the prominent actors who could play an irreplaceable role in reducing the human and material damage and making the region a better place for governance and development. Some of these citizens, however, had taken up arms and went into battlefields, either being swayed by TPLF propaganda or forced by the illegal group. Nevertheless, the government recognized that natives of the region are not the main culprits. The government strongly believes in handling the matter patiently with the understanding that patriotic natives who were not involved in the looting and plundering rather opposed the government at the instigation of the destructive group. Therefore, the government believes that the participation of various parties is crucial to strengthen national unity and rebuild our common values, solidarity, and infrastructure damaged by the destructive group. As a result, with the exception of senior TPLF military and political leaders who are suspected of being involved in the illegal attacks and related crimes and against whom arrest warrants has been issued, other citizens and natives of the region are called upon to return to their villages and homes within a week and join the community. In such a way, citizens that are natives of the region who decide to detach from the destructive group and refrain from engaging in destructive activities are asked to resume their normal lives and live peacefully without any legal liability. The relevant security, administrative and law enforcement agencies have been provided with the necessary resources to welcome and cooperate with these citizens. The government is calling on senior TPLF military and political leaders who are suspected to have played a key role in the crime to surrender peacefully to law enforcement agencies. The government calls on these leaders to do their part by learning from the devastation and damage so far, presenting themselves to justice, preventing further national loss, and not shedding the blood of citizens in vain. TPLF's top military and political leaders who do this will save themselves from severe punishment and prevent misery of their people. However, to the senior military and political leaders of the TPLF who do not respond to this last call to bring themselves to justice, the government states in advance that all necessary measures will be taken to enforce the law.
Ethiopia says it has taken concrete steps to address any human rights abuses that have occurred within the context of the conflict triggered by the TPLF. This was disclosed when the Ethiopian Embassy in London issued a statement regarding the story made by Channel 4 News on sexual violence against women in the state of Tigray. Emmanuel Jorge presents the statement as follows.
The statement said the embassy remains deeply concerned by allegations of the use of rape as an instrument of war. The government, the statement read, maintains a zero-tolerance policy towards rape and sexual violence, which constitute grave violations of human rights, and is treating these allegations with the utmost seriousness. Since the law enforcement operation began, the government of Ethiopia has taken concrete steps to address any human rights abuses that have occurred within the context of the conflict triggered by the TPLF and has made its position unequivocally clear concerning human rights violations committed in the Tigray region. In line with the government's commitment to uphold the rule of law and bring to account any perpetrators of these crimes, special task forces have been deployed to Tigray in recent weeks to carry out investigations on the ground aimed at establishing the facts. Furthermore, the Ethiopian Human Rights Commission, an independent body, has also been investigating in the region and routinely has been releasing its findings. All women and girls across Ethiopia should be able to feel safe in their homes, free from fear of all forms of violence and abuse. We would like to reassure Ethiopians, the international community, and development partners that the government of Ethiopia is committed to enabling a safe and peaceful country in which the rights of women and girls are protected and the rule of law is ensured. Any serious violations committed against citizens will be thoroughly investigated, and the government will spare no effort in bringing the perpetrators of crimes against humanity and crimes against the state to justice.
And finally, economists blame the soaring inflation as well as rising cost of living on political and economic reasons. They reiterated that the government must desist from blaming traders and resolve the problem by using various rectifying measures. Saying there are various actors sabotaging the economy, they urged the government to take stern measures against such actions. Goshamalsa reports.
Over the past 3 years, Ethiopia has seen instability here and there. Thus, the lives of many people were disrupted. And now, the people are being severely affected by the galloping cost of living. The latest report from the Central Statistics Agency shows that the average price change of goods and services in February alone grew by 20.6%. Reflecting their view on the matter, economists approached by TV said the current skyrocketing inflation rate and cost of living is caused by political and economic crisis in the country.
There's a combination of economic and political reasons. As I said, the political reasons are usually tied up to security issues, but also to issues related to government choices in terms of, for example, withdrawing subsidies. This is more of political, actually, decision rather than economic decisions. The economic aspects, again, are tied up also to securities. People cannot get, or traders cannot get inputs actually for their manufacturing plants, and so it's very difficult actually.
Where we have always conflicts, when you have some interventions by the government, which is primarily politically driven, then there will be instability, be it in the production system or in the supply chain, of goods and services from one place to another.
According to The Economist, the recent price hike on fuel has exacerbated the problem as has injected money.
Yes, the fuel increase has contributed, but as I said, the prices has been going on for quite some time. There's also another component actually is also the government's printing money also to cover part of its costs and expenses has also contributed to the hike in prices. So there are a variety of reasons why the prices has been increasing and has stayed up actually here in Ethiopia today.
The economists called upon the government to take serious measurements against economic sabotages inside and outside its formal structures.
The first proper assignment the government has from the public is to regulate and control those who are playing in the market. That's what we wanted the government to do, be it in the inputs market, in the product market, in the finance market. And instead of creating enterprises to distribute or, like as you said, purchase and distribute, no, do the proper regulatory and controlling interventions and take action. Because economic sabotages exist within the government system. Economic sabotages exists within the population, and economic sabotages come from outside and exist in the country through different multilateral and bilateral institutions.
Both of them agreed that the government should resolve the issue on its part before pointing fingers at traders alone.
Instead of politicizing, the Warada Bureau of Commerce and so forth talks about they are not able to control this. Then who should do it then? Okay. Why are we there? There is something wrong. So let's stop those and focus. One, the first thing, what we have to focus on is the government has to do its proper job.
It's a free market, actually. I mean, in one way or another. Then the tendency is for the market to dictate, as I said. It's very difficult to blame everything on the traders, actually, because, as I said, there are a lot of decisions that were made beyond, actually, the preview of the traders.
Economists suggested that the government should put in place strict regulations, long-term plans, and increase production and productivity. Otherwise, they warned the situation may spiral out of control, leading to political and economic chaos.
The measure that has been taken, I'm not arguing is bad. Okay, economists has to come out of subsidy programs, be it in oil or wheat, what have you. But the timing and the rate of elevating those, supports must be carefully studied, because it can lead you to political chaoses. That's what I'm noticing. I don't think the government has totally believed with the amount of the oil price increase recently. I am suspecting there is a force behind it, forces like the World Bank, the IMF.
Actually, one has to look at the recent history. What happened actually in Tunisia?
And before we go, a reminder of our top stories. Ethiopia issues final call for all allied with outlawed TPLF.